It might shock you to know that 40% of businesses have experienced a cloud-based data breach in the past 12 months. Despite these incidents, the 83% of businesses still fail to encrypt half of their sensitive data they stored in the cloud. Palo Alto Networks strives to be partner of choice to keep your businesses secure with all our products, including Cloud Next-Gen Firewall. Welcome to Cloud Next-Gen Firewall, best-in-class security made easy on AWS session. I'm Raj Patil. I lead the technical marketing, and in my current role, I help customers like you to design and secure your public cloud architectures using our software firewalls.
Hello, my name is Salman Syed, and in my role as a senior technical marketing engineer here at Palo Alto Networks, I help customers feel confident about the deployment of their public cloud environment.
In the next 45 minutes, this is what you will hear. We'll begin with what are some of the security challenges in public cloud. Then we'll dive into the reasons why you need a next-gen firewall and why we created Cloud Next-Gen Firewall for AWS. After this, Salman will discuss the fundamentals, deployment architectures, followed by a quick product demo. So let's get started. One of the most frequently asked questions from our customer is, why do I need a next-gen firewall in public cloud? Well, there are three primary reasons you need next-gen firewall. The first one is about outbound connections to the internet. It is the biggest network-based risk when it comes to public cloud. When I talk about outbound connection, what I really mean is that applications need to connect to internet for various reasons like software updates or for using external APIs such as Facebook or Google. So you really have to allow these connections. But once you do that, your workloads are also allowed to download malware, connect to command and control servers, and exfiltrate your critical data. If you protect these outbound connections with next-gen firewall, it can automatically block the malicious connections and save you from ransomware, command and control, as well as data exfiltration. The second risk comes from unknown and unpatched vulnerabilities. Now, as an industry, we all are trying to shift security left and patch all the vulnerabilities before your applications are delivered or developed or goes into production. But there are like two reasons why you can never go or get into that nirvana state having absolutely no vulnerabilities in your environment. The first one is unknown vulnerabilities. Log4j as an attack was existed for 7 years before it was declared and found as a CVE. So there might be hundreds of such attacks which are out there. Those are being exploited by attackers, and you can't really patch them because you can't even know about them. Now let's talk about delay in patching. It takes enterprises not weeks but even more than months to patch all these vulnerabilities. So during that period, you are exposed while you try to get all this patching work done. But hey, if you have all the inbound connections protected by next-gen firewall, it can block attackers right there in the first phase of the attack itself. It buys you more time and acts as a compensating control. The third risk is the east-west connection between the applications. To follow the true zero trust philosophy, you need to protect inbound connections not just from internet, but also coming from every application. Otherwise, what really happens is that someone from internet will break into one of your application, and then it will spread that attack laterally into every other application. According to our Unit 42, we have found that if somebody breaks into application, within 5 minutes, it can impact more than 10,000 of such VMs. So again, the east-west is very critical. To summarize, why do we need next-gen firewall in public cloud? To protect your outbound connections, to protect from unknown and unpatched vulnerabilities, as well as to give you that lateral movement protection. Now let's look at why we created Next-Gen Firewall. Thousands of customers use our VM series, which is virtualized version of our Next-Gen Firewall, and they use it to protect various VPCs in AWS. VM series provides best-in-class security with Layer 7 application controls, real-time ML-powered threat prevention, advanced URL filtering, and so on. These are the security capabilities that network security team are very familiar and they're always looking for. But if you look at the needs from a cloud security administrator or DevOps, they are always looking for cloud native service that allows them to move fast. They do not want security to come in between their application development. They want automate everything and requires no maintenance or manual work. So most of our customers that we talk to, they always have a debate going on between two of these internal teams because there was no solution in the market that gave them best of both worlds. And that's why we created Cloud Next-Gen Firewall for AWS. With Cloud Next-Gen Firewall, our customers can now have best of both worlds. What it really means is that they get best-in-class Palo Alto network security to stop zero-day threats, whereas it is delivered as a managed cloud native service, and it is as easy as any other AWS service. This service is managed by Palo Alto Networks, so customers do not have to deal with or worry about deploying firewalls on their own. So in a nutshell, what is Cloud Next-Gen Firewall? Cloud Next-Gen Firewall aligns with Zero Trust. It enables secure application access, inspects all the traffic, and helps enforce least privilege access, all while detecting and preventing advanced threats. Under the hood, the service is powered by VM series firewalls and AWS Gateway Load Balancer technology. Just like any other AWS service, it can be deployed in just few clicks or one simple API call. It brings our best-in-class security capabilities like App ID, threat prevention, and URL filtering. This is what Palo Alto Networks is known for. We are the first third-party vendor to integrate with AWS Firewall Manager. Just like how you can use Firewall Manager to manage AWS Network Firewall, WAF, or security groups, you can now use AWS Firewall Manager to manage Cloud Next-Gen Firewall. Now I'll double-click into the three primary security services that we leverage here. The first one is our application identification or App ID. App ID is a technology that goes beyond just simple port and protocols. What it does, it looks at the content of the packet to identify the real application. And where exactly it becomes important? Let me give an example. If you look at HTTP application, there are like thousands of applications which can run over HTTP protocol. But with App ID, it allows you to distinguish between one type of application from another type. And that helps our customers to enhance the overall security posture. With App ID, customers can now allow specific applications that they want, and they can then deny certain applications that they don't want the users to access to. Whereas both of these applications might be sharing the same underlying protocol. That's the unique benefit of identifying the applications. Now the second one, let's talk about our threat prevention capabilities. We have 200 plus threat researchers in our Unit 42 threat team. They wake up every day doing nothing but thinking about threats and how to protect our customers from all these malicious activities around the world. These are the guys generating signatures, looking at the patterns, and their end goal, of course, is to stop the malwares, stop the exploitation of vulnerabilities, and stop all the command and control activities. The third important capability is our advanced URL filtering. Advanced URL filtering allows you to protect the outbound connections from your VPCs, not just by using simple URL categories, but also by scanning the content for any web-based attacks and command and control activities. Again, this is of course just the beginning. We will be bringing additional security services like Wildfire, DNS, DLP, and so on to Cloud Next-Gen Firewall very soon. As of now, we have expanded Cloud Next-Gen Firewall to all AWS regions in the US, Canada, as well as Europe. And our engineering team is constantly working on adding new regions around the world, including the support for GovCloud. Now that you understand why you need Next-Gen Firewall in AWS and why we built Cloud Next-Gen Firewall, let me hand it over to Salman to go deeper into technical details and give you a quick live demo. Over to you, Salman.
Thank you, Raj. Now let's take a deep dive into how Cloud NGFW for AWS secure AWS deployments and prevent attackers from exploiting the Log4j vulnerability. Cloud NGFW is delivered as a managed cloud-native service for AWS. It allows customers to focus on what really matters to them, the security of their AWS deployment. All you have to do is define the security policies and route traffic to the Cloud NGFW endpoint in your VPC. This is where we use the gateway load balancer technology to transport the traffic to the firewalls, inspect it, and decide if this traffic should be allowed or blocked. You do not have to worry about deploying, updating, or managing infrastructures, or software updates, or resiliency and scaling. This is all delivered as part of the Cloud NGFW service by Palo Alto Networks. Cloud NGFW integrates into the way customers work with AWS today. It cuts down complexity that allows your team to easily safeguard data, applications, and workloads with cloud agility. It is the first third-party firewall to be integrated with AWS Firewall Manager. Customers can enable simple firewall policy management across AWS accounts. We have also added infrastructure as code capabilities to automate Cloud NGFW provisioning. You can do it via the CI/CD pipeline using the Cloud NGFW API, CloudFormation templates, and Terraform. Additionally, AWS Firewall Manager can be automated using the AWS API, SDK, and CLI. There are three main components of Cloud NGFW. The first is Cloud NGFW resource. The Cloud NGFW resource is associated with your VPC and can span multiple availability zones. This resource has a built-in resiliency, scalability, and lifecycle management. Second is Cloud NGFW endpoints. NGFW endpoints intercept traffic and route it to the NGFW for inspection and policy management. And third is rule stack. Rule stack defines policy, both the access control using app ID and URL filtering, as well as threat prevention for Cloud NGFW resources. If you are familiar with the device groups in Panorama, a rule stack is very similar to that. A Cloud NGFW resource uses your rule stack definitions to protect the traffic by a two-step process. First, it enforces your rules to allow or deny traffic. Second, it performs content inspection on the allowed traffic based on what you specify on the security profiles. Each NGFW is a gateway load balancer-based VPC endpoint service managed by Palo Alto Networks with built-in resiliency, zone affinity, scalability, and lifecycle management. Under the hood, each Cloud NGFW resource includes a dedicated set of auto-scaling groups of Palo Alto Networks VM series firewall nodes. Cloud NGFW associate an auto-scaling group for each availability zone the NGFW resource span across. These auto-scaling groups are configured as targets to the gateway load balancer. Let's take a look, or let's talk a little bit about how Cloud NGFW is consumed by our customers. It is available through AWS Marketplace. It's very easy to start using Cloud NGFW by going to the Cloud NGFW SaaS subscription listing in the marketplace, which is a pay-as-you-go listing. So you pay for what you use. It is a very simple and easy way for customers to get started. We have 15-day trial. So there is no cost to the customer to try, and when the trial period is over, it automatically transitions to pay-as-you-go model. And once you decide that you want to use this service for a longer term, we also have a SaaS contract listing that allows you to subscribe for 12, 24, or 36 months with a discount. Now let's talk about your experience. Deploying Cloud NGFW is a simple 3-step process. First, you subscribe to the Cloud NGFW service. Second, you write your security policy. And third, you deploy the Cloud NGFW resource and point your routes to the Cloud NGFW endpoint. You can deploy Cloud NGFW in AWS environment in multiple ways. You can use the Cloud NGFW console, a graphical user interface that provides a way to add and manage users and roles. Configure your Cloud NGFW deployments, and define rule stack and rules to protect your application VPCs. Another option is AWS Firewall Manager. You can use the AWS Firewall Manager console to deploy Cloud NGFW across multiple AWS accounts in an AWS organization. The Firewall Manager deploys Cloud NGFW components, including creation of the NGFWs and NGFW endpoints in your VPCs, and also the FMS console redirects you to the Cloud NGFW tenant to author rules for your global rule stack. Cloud NGFW provides detailed logs for traffic, threat, and decryption, so you can monitor the security of your environment and take action if an issue is detected. Logs can be sent to S3 storage buckets, CloudWatch log groups, and Kinesis data firehose for an integrated AWS experience. If you would like the logs go to your SIEM, you can redirect them to the SIEM of your choice from Kinesis data firehose, CloudWatch, and S3 buckets. So now let's see Cloud NGFW in action. In this demo, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use Cloud NGFW to secure your AWS deployments and prevent attackers from exploiting the Log4j vulnerability. Let's get started. Apache Log4j is widely used by organizations around the world. Almost every organization was affected by this vulnerability. This vulnerability is particularly serious as it allows unauthenticated remote code execution. The attack sequence starts with the attacker sending an HTTP GET request with a special header. The vulnerable server running Log4j interprets the heading string as code, which is executed and leads to the server being compromised. By inserting a firewall in the flow of traffic, the attack can be blocked. Here is the demo setup. The internet-facing Apache server is the protected subnet at the bottom. The Cloud NGFW resources sits between the internet gateway and the protected subnet to detect and block threats coming from the internet. So the attackers send the HTTP GET request to the server, and the packet enters the VPC via the internet gateway. The internet gateway has an ingress route table associated with it and routes all traffic destined for the protected subnet to the Cloud NGFW endpoint. The Cloud NGFW endpoint then sends the traffic to the Cloud NGFW for inspection. And if the traffic is allowed, the Cloud NGFW sends the traffic back to the endpoint. And the traffic is routed to the server in the protected subnet. Let's begin the deployment process. The first step is to subscribe to Cloud NGFW in the AWS Marketplace. This makes it easy to get started. Cloud NGFW usage is billed on a pay-as-you-go basis, and charges will show up on your monthly AWS bill. After subscribing to the service, you create a Cloud NGFW tenant. Once the Cloud NGFW tenant is created, you add your AWS account and grant the permissions needed by Cloud NGFW to deliver the service. During this step, you will be redirected to your AWS account CFT page and presented with a predefined template that permits Cloud NGFW to store firewall logs, create NGFW endpoints, and access keys for decryption in your AWS account. Once you acknowledge and create the stack, the Cloud NGFW console will successfully add your AWS account. Now that you have subscribed to the Cloud NGFW, the second step is to create a rule stack to secure your application traffic. A rule stack consists of objects, a sort of rules, and security profiles that define how your application traffic will be secured. Cloud NGFW makes it easy to configure security capabilities. For example, you can use the application section to control applications by name instead of network port and protocols. While many apps can communicate over a single port, this ensures that only the app you intended is allowed by the policy. Security profiles make it easy to configure. Security profiles make it easy to enable advanced security capabilities such as intrusion prevention and protection from spyware, malware, and web-based threats. For example, URL categories and filtering provide control over web activities. The default profile is configured to block known malware sites, phishing sites, and adult content. For each of these security profiles, we make it easy to get started by providing best practice settings. The third step is to create the Cloud NGFW resource to enforce the policy you wrote in step 2. With the click of a button, Cloud NGFW does the heavy lifting of deploying the necessary infrastructure to deliver a resilient firewall service that automatically scales with your network traffic. You do not need to worry about deploying infrastructure or managing software updates. The Cloud NGFW resource appears in your VPC as an endpoint. To secure traffic, you simply route it from your VPC to the endpoint. The Cloud NGFW resource behaves as a bump in the wire. All traffic sent to the endpoint is inspected and returned to the same endpoint. Cloud NGFW provides detailed logs for traffic, threat, and decryption, so you can monitor the security of your environment and take action if an issue is detected. Logs can be sent to S3 storage bucket, CloudWatch log groups, and Kinesis data firehose for an integrated AWS experience. At this stage, Cloud NGFW is securing your traffic. Let's run the Log4j attack and see what happened. The attackers sent the HTTP GET request, and you can see that there is no response to the command. Cloud NGFW successfully blocked the attack on the first request. Cloud NGFW security profiles are always on, and they have the unique ability to detect and block threats on any and all ports. So instead of invoking signatures based on a limited set of predefined ports, the threat logs provide details about the threat protection that Cloud NGFW is providing. Here you can see that the incoming Log4j threat was detected and blocked. The firewall terminated the session. Next, I will show you how you can scale network security across many AWS accounts and VPC. So we are proud that Cloud NGFW is the first NGFW to integrate with AWS Firewall Manager. This integration enables simple and consistent firewall policy management across multiple AWS accounts and VPC. Once subscribed to Cloud NGFW, the Firewall Manager administrator can create a Firewall Manager security policy for Cloud NGFW. Cloud NGFW supports both the distributed and centralized deployment model. In the centralized model, a central security VPC is used to inspect traffic using a hub and spoke topology. And in the distributed model, each VPC has its own firewall. The administrator then associates a Cloud NGFW global rule stack with FMS policy and configures logging. Customers can send logs to S3 bucket, CloudWatch log group, and Kinesis data firehose. Firewall Manager also allows the administrator to create the NGFW endpoints in all AWS availability zones. The administrator specifies the CIDR range for the firewall subnet where NGFW endpoints will be deployed. Next, the administrator specifies the scope of the firewall manager policy by selecting all or specific AWS accounts within the AWS organization. A CFT template is run for each account to enable Cloud NGFW to deploy the endpoints. And once the admin reviews the policy and hits create, AWS Firewall Manager calls the Cloud Manager APIs to create Cloud NGFW resources for all the in-scope VPCs. The Cloud NGFW global rule stacks are automatically associated with the created NGFWs. And as new AWS accounts join the organization, AWS Firewall Manager automatically ensures they are compliant by creating new NGFWs as needed. So in this demo, you saw firsthand how Cloud NGFW dramatically improves the way you secure your AWS deployments. With Cloud NGFW, you get best-in-class next-gen firewall security that is delivered as an easy-to-use cloud-native managed service on AWS. Now let's take a look at deployment models for common use cases where Cloud NGFW for AWS could be added into the traffic path. In the event of the cloud breach, malware can spread to thousands of workloads in a matter of minutes. Cloud workloads require advanced segmentation and threat prevention to achieve zero trust and stop inbound, outbound, and lateral movement. The first use case is inbound. For workloads that receive inbound traffic from the internet, you can use the Cloud NGFW to protect these workloads from inbound exploits and malware using App ID and threat prevention subscription. The second use case is outbound connections to the internet. Most workloads have to connect outbound to the internet for downloading software updates and consuming external APIs. Cloud NGFW with threat prevention, advanced URL filtering, and App ID can ensure that these outbound connections are legit and not command and control connections or data exfiltration attempts. And the third use case is preventing lateral movement of threats from VPC to VPC by using App ID and threat prevention. There are three main deployments models with Cloud NGFW for AWS. The first is the distributed model. In this model, we deploy the Cloud NGFW endpoint into each VPC which requires protection. Each VPC is protected individually and blast radius is reduced through VPC isolation. Second is centralized model. Cloud NGFW endpoint is deployed into centralized VPC for east-west or north-south like internet egress or internet or on-prem traffic. And third is the combined model. In this model, Cloud NGFW is deployed into a centralized security VPC for east-west or VPC to VPC and a subset of north-south like on-prem or egress traffic. And internet ingress is distributed to VPCs which require dedicated inbound access from the internet, and Cloud NGFW is deployed accordingly. Now let's take a look at some distributed model traffic flows. And these are just an example. If you want more details, you can always visit our Palo Alto Live community page, and we have more details about different traffic flows. So the first one is the outbound. To protect outbound traffic, create a firewall subnet in a VPC and deploy a Cloud NGFW endpoint in that subnet. App subnet has a default route to the firewall endpoint. Traffic from the instance is routed to the NG firewall endpoint for inspection. And NG firewall endpoint automatically sends traffic to the NG firewall for inspection. If the traffic is allowed, the NG firewall sends traffic back to the endpoint. And the firewall subnet has a default route to net gateway. So the NGFW will receive the traffic and forward it to the destination through IGW. And next is the inbound traffic flow. So to protect inbound traffic, create a firewall subnet in a VPC and deploy a Cloud NGFW endpoint in that particular subnet. Traffic from the internet is sent to IGW, and as you can see here, IGW has an ingress route table associated with it. And route table has an entry for protected subnet, directing traffic to the Cloud NGFW endpoint in the corresponding AZ. So this ensures that traffic is symmetrically returned to the right firewall endpoint to maintain stateful traffic inspection. An internet gateway routes traffic to NG firewall endpoint, and the NG firewall endpoint automatically sends traffic to the NG firewall for inspection. And if the traffic is allowed, the NG firewall sends traffic back to the endpoint, and then in the end, the endpoint routes the traffic to the ALB. So at this point, you may have a couple of questions, like can I use the same NGFW resource to protect internet ingress, internet egress, and east-west traffic? And the answer is yes. And the next question is, can I share the NGFW resource by creating endpoints on different VPCs? And the answer is also yes. Let's take a look at the new multi-VPC feature that we have just released. So to consolidate firewall resources and save cost, customers can associate their firewall resources with multiple VPCs across multiple accounts. Right now, the service only allows an endpoint for firewall resources in the account and VPC that is specified in the firewall resource configuration. So this new features allows customers to create endpoints for a firewall resource of any VPCs in any of the onboarded accounts. Now let's summarize what we covered today. Cloud NGFW integrates security into the way you work with AWS. It cuts down complexity that allows your team to easily safeguard data, applications, and workloads with cloud agility. You can procure it from the AWS marketplace in a few minutes. It eliminates infrastructure management with a resilient cloud service that scales dynamically with your network traffic. Cloud NGFW removes the heavy lifting of designing and supporting firewall architecture with high availability and eliminates manual deployment and configuration. Ensure network security performance and resiliency with a firewall specifically designed for AWS. Cloud NGFW also natively integrates with AWS Firewall Manager, so you can simplify your cloud network security, easily secure your automated workflows, and take advantage of load balancing and auto-loading capabilities from AWS to scale. And with infrastructure as code and the ability to embed into your continuous integration and continuous delivery, that is CI/CD pipeline, Cloud NGFW makes life easier for cloud security practitioners. So to learn more about Cloud NGFW, please visit the Palo Alto Network website, and please take a look at our solution brief. We also have some ebook available that can also help you to learn more about this service. And as I mentioned before during the pricing section, that we have a 15-day trial period, so you can try it out for 15 days for free. And then to learn about different deployment architecture and to see different demo videos, please visit Palo Alto Network Live community page. On behalf of Raj and myself, thank you for your interest in Cloud NGFW for AWS service. And please do not forget to try our 3-hour lab that is available on qclab.paloaltonetworks.com website, or you can also try it in person at Ignite.